exactly what I want. I want specifics. I don't want to throw a little manure and a little this and a little this that on there. I want specifics. And that's what biological farming does. We have ways of figuring out how everything balances in the soil. Every mineral is dependent on another mineral or another nutrient to react in the soil. A lot of the agronomists will say, well, that crop doesn't need that much of that, so we're just going to ignore it. But they're ignoring every chemical reaction in the soil, just like in your body. You have to have a touch of arsenic. You have to have some copper. You have to have a little of everything that's in the soil in your body to be healthy. If a woman doesn't have a touch of arsenic in her body, she won't have boys. So ladies, you need arsenic, you're going to have boys. So everything is interreactive, and that's the thing about biological farming, is understanding that interaction through everything and getting it back into the balance. And when you do that, you don't have insect and disease problems. And I've done, what has it been, 45 years since I started this. It was about 1990 when I was approached by a Tenio rep, and he knew that I had been certified organic. I was pretty public, because there weren't a lot of us. And he brought me a product to try. And he told me it was a soil microbe. He says, just spray this on the soil and see what you think. Well, we had that 60-acre farm in Moses Lake, and it was blow sand. And they had only farmed half of that farm. We had 35 acres that had been in production, and the rest of it was kind of on a hill behind the house, and they had never done anything with it. And there was black nightshade that grew like gangbusters up there. And we mowed it down, and we kept putting manure and whatnot on it, and kept coming back for a couple of years. And I finally told my husband, I said, I want to put a manure on this stuff, we're going to get rid of it. So finally we got so we could plant it. And I had trees and berries and different things. And I had an asparagus bed, and this one root, this weed, it had a white root that was down probably a foot and a half. And it ran long ways, and it would occasionally shoot up some leaves. And the leaves are serrated and kind of like a dandelion leaf, but more serrated. And if you try to kill it, you just kill everything around it. And so I just would go up there and pull it out periodically, because it was sand, it was easy pulling, and I'd sit in the shade, it was no big deal. So anyway, I used this product, came back a couple of weeks, and I thought, well, today's a really good day to go pull that weed. I went up there was nothing on the top of the ground. I thought, well, there's got to be roots. So I was digging down, there's no roots. And I said, what the heck? So I called that salesman up and I said, oh, you've got my attention. What is this? And what did it do and why did it do it? And so that was the middle of the summer. And I was invited to the seminar the following February. And I spent 2 days with my jaw dropped off the ground, listening to all this neat stuff about all the commercial farmers that were farming all these different acres and not using pesticides. And I was blown away, because the one bug that I couldn't handle was potato bugs. And I thought, if I can get rid of potato bugs, that's it, And I talked to this guy who had thousands of acres of potatoes that he farmed commercially and did not have potato bugs. And he says, well, it's just a matter of balancing the pH. Well, what does that mean? It's getting the minerals right. We have high magnesium soils in this area, so we have high pHs. It's not because of calcium, it's because of magnesium. So we have to raise that calcium up to get that under control. When we do that, we balance the pH in our soil, but we balance the pH in our plant. The pH that we're talking about is not the soil, it's the plant, the growing pH of the plant. In our manual, Tanio's manual, we have a chart, and it will tell you if that pH is too high or too low, if you're going to have an insect or disease problem. And so all you have to do is monitor your plants. And that, to me, was magic. There's your chart. So it tells you the nutrients to correct with. It tells you, before it happens, if you're going to have an insect or disease problem. I was always a science and math girl, and this was right down my alley. So that's what biological farming is. Extremely scientific, things that you can relate to, things that you can see, and you're not guessing. Our soil tests We have, we work with Midwest Labs because they give us the parameters that we need to make the calculations. I've looked at a lot of other soil tests that people have sent me, and they don't tell me the CEC, that is the ability of soil to hang on to nutrients, cation exchange capacity. If your CEC is low, maybe you only need 800 pounds of calcium. If it's high, you might need 2,500 to 3,000 pounds of calcium. So it's according to the ability of the soil to hang on to nutrients. You're not wasting your time and money by putting on too much and it just flushing through where the plants can't use it. It has to be in balance. Boron is another thing that a lot of people don't understand. It is the driver to bring calcium into the plant. We're extremely low in our area, 0.3, 0.4, 1.2 is minimum before it starts working, 1.5 is where we want to start. It has a threshold. It does not get used at 0.3, 0.4. It doesn't start getting used until it's 1.2. So if we want to get that calcium in the plant, we want to get rid of blossom and rot, we want to have shelf life, we want to have cell integrity, then we've got to have the boron so that we can get the calcium into the plant. So that's another little thing that most people don't address. I just got sent 3 soil samples today from a gentleman, and I'm not even sure what state he's in. I talked to people from all over, and it was the same thing. His boron was too low, so therefore the field man that he had has continued to say you're calcium deficient, so add more calcium. So he's now at 83% calcium, which is too much. Our calcium should be between 70 and 80%, not over 80. He's at 83%. His boron is too low. That's why the calcium didn't go in the plant, not because he was calcium deficient. But you have to understand these interreactions. So that's the synopsis of what I do. And it's simple. Once you understand, you look at your soil test and you see those interreactions, it's a simple thing to put those things back into balance. Boron, too much boron will sterilize the soil. So if you want to use it as a weed killer, it's an easy thing to do. Borax is an easy product to buy that is boron. They say for a fruit tree, it's 2 3/4 ounces, and it's like fairy dust, very, very light. You don't want any clumps anywhere. At 4 pounds to the acre, it will sterilize the soil. So we have people that use it in their driveways and in their fence lines when they have neighbors that aren't taking care of their place, because it's not going to cause any contamination problems anywhere else. So this is an easy product to handle. Just remember, light applications. This can go on the soil right away. During the summertime, I like to foliar feed with Solubor, and that's a commercial type of boron. 1 tablespoon per gallon as a foliar feed, and you foliar feed under 80 degrees. I have seen the peach trees really, really improve by doing that monthly. Peaches seem to be a heavy feeder of boron. Beets are a heavy feeder, so are cucumbers. When you get that pointed in and where it wants to rot in a cucumber, that's a lack of boron. Okay, let's, I've got some good handouts so that you can see different things. We have nutrient guides. Yes?
When you're using boron, like if I wanted to use it in my driveway to sterilize weeds, do I water that in?
You have to apply it with water.
Okay.
You don't have to water it in, no.
So because you were saying a light sprinkling, so would you do a sprinkling and then water it, or you just
Well, yes, in that instance, if you're using that product, yes, you'd have to water it in a little bit because you want it to get in your driveway where you want it, yeah. But you could put, now I haven't tried putting that in a sprayer yet. I don't know how well it dissolves, but it probably dissolves fine because I use it for laundry, right? So it probably dissolves just fine. And yeah, you can just overuse it. Works great. Yeah, yes.
We have neighbors that, on the other side of our fence, right next to our raspberry beds, who round up their gravel right there. It killed our raspberry bed for years, which has now finally recovered, but they still want to keep the plants down on that gravel area on their side of the fence. Can I suggest that they use borax? Will that affect our raspberry bed right on the other side?
No. And I have a handout tonight that I printed off. This is one of the gentlemen that was at Acres USA, and they talked about how to remediate Roundup ground. It is a very long-lasting product. And what they've not told us about Roundup and a few other pesticides, herbicides, is that they're metal chelators. They don't kill by poisoning the plant. They kill by hanging on to the trace minerals and starving the plant. And when they lock up with those trace minerals, they also keep it from our healthy plants that we want them to grow. So they give us very deficient problems. When you use phosphate fertilizer, it unlocks the chelation bond and it can kill again. And 4 years ago, when they found out about the problems with Roundup and the disease organism that they couldn't even identify from the crops in the Midwest, they were horrified at what they found out, and they didn't know how to stem it. They have, what is it called, corn goths or something like that, where the corn plants are actually turning slimy as they're growing, and that is because of the Roundup. And so they've played with this in the laboratory for the last 4 years, so now they have some suggestions. And heavily mineralizing your soil and doing the microbes to eat up the Roundup is how you have to keep doing this. The first thing that ties up is manganese. We're already so blasted deficient in manganese in this area that it's not even funny. We need 20 on manganese, and we are at 4 to 6. Manganese is what makes things ripen, and it also makes seeds sprout. I've had a lot of people that came to me and said, you know, I buy organic seeds and they won't sprout, they don't grow. And I don't have any manganese, okay? So I really think that doing seed treatment on your seeds really helps, because all of the products I have a trace mineral base so that they'll get that so they can have that life to sprout. So manganese, boron is number 1, manganese is number 2 of the trace minerals that we need to address. Most everything else can be addressed with the fish fertilizer that we use. Your copper, your zinc, and the other things are fine. We don't have a big problem with those. It's just that manganese and boron. And the Roundup problem, tying up the manganese, is we have to put on a lot more manganese, you know, so that we can get past the chelation problem with Roundup.
Well, that's talking about how to fix my raspberry bed, but the issue is still, what can my neighbors do to keep the weeds down on their side?
Yeah, if they want to do the borax on their side.
If it sprinkle a light bit of borax on it?
Yeah, they can sprinkle it heavy. These are only $3.73.
Did you
Okay.
say it should sprinkle light or heavy?
Heavy. You've got to put on too much. If you put on too much, you sterilize the soil.
Okay. And that won't affect
And
my raspberry bed right next door?
No. You can get over the fence line in the middle of the night.
So I feel a lot of borax in my window.
You know, at the farm seminar, we learned lots of interesting things. There are oil remediation products. And this gentleman told this story on himself. He spilled some oil in his driveway, and he thought, well, I'll just use this product to clean it up. He didn't think about his driveway being asphalt. So he comes out and he has this giant hole, because what this product does, it follows any oil down into the ground until it runs out and then it dies. So he had this giant cavern in his driveway, which I thought was so humorous. And then we thought, we should put it in a spray bottle, we should go up to Columbia Center Mall and spray the speed bumps. They would never figure out what was going on. So we have lots of interesting things that we can do, lots of products that will take care of problems. When we were in Walla Walla, we bought a 110-acre farm, and after we bought it, a field man came by and said these guys had sprayed out 27 acres with such strong stuff we'd grow nothing for 2 years, which did not make me a happy camper. You don't buy 110 acres so you can't farm it. And so I took a plot and I played with microbes just to see what I could do. And because he scared me pretty bad with saying I'd grow nothing for 2 years, I did the spectrum and the Nutrinede weekly on this garden plot. I had ears of corn that were 14 inches long with every single kernel filled. I didn't even know corn did that. I've never seen it before. We had a half a dozen Crenshaw melon plants. We filled a pickup truck bed when it was going to frost, and we'd been feeding 2 families off that. I had broccoli heads that were 14 to 17 inches across. I could feed half the town with one broccoli head. It was incredible. So after that little experiment, we went back in that field and we used the biologicals in the field. We did it once, waited 6 weeks, did it again, and went in and planted and had no problems. So the microbes will eat up the contamination and balance your soils and get things right. When you have contaminations and compact soil, then you have a lack of oxygen, so that you have a lot of anaerobic bacteria that can cause problems on your plant roots. So you need to get those microbes in there and get your soil in the right shape, and then things start happening for you. Makes it, fairly easy. Okay, do we have any other specific questions? Yes.
We have a 40-year-old sycamore in our backyard and another one in front where we're heavily shaded, like 90% of the time. And I find it hard to grow things.
Yeah, you're not going to grow too close to a sycamore tree. They have pretty oily leaves, but you can compost those leaves. When we lived in Milk-Free Water, I was told by the neighbors you could not compost sycamore tree leaves, and so I piled them all up, and we have our little biodigester and threw it on there. And I put it next to an azalea plant. It was a rosebud azalea, and up against the house. And the neighbor lady, who was a few acres away, she called me in the spring and she said, "What in the world did you do that plant? I've never seen it so pretty." And the guy who had been there had tried to dig it out, so he had chopped on it pretty bad. And the thing was going up inside the house, and it was just full of these gorgeous, gorgeous blooms. And that was where I put my compost, because I didn't know the plant was there. And it did a wonderful job. So you've got to plant away from that, because your roots are going to take all the nutrition, and you've got to get some sun. So you have to pick a different spot or get rid of a sycamore. Yes?
I know that I started a strawberry bed, and I know it was really crowded. But the product that I got, the strawberries were very small, but on the bottom, they had a little black spot, almost like a little scar. Is that a nematode? Is that a fungus? Is it an insect? Or is it the soil?
Are we talking about the strawberry itself?
Yes.
That's probably calcium. Typically your brown spots on tips are calcium. The boron deficiency on a fruit tree will be the growing tip. And you'll see healthy leaves, but
Yes, healthy leaves.
that growing tip will be dead. That's a boron deficiency.
If the tip of the leaf is brown?
Not the tip. You'll have two leaves that are normal, and the growing tip coming up will blacken. It'll come out,
Yeah.
but it'll turn black, and that's a boron deficiency. And the peach trees seem really, really susceptible to that. I wrote out, like I said, I have this list for handouts that will tell you the deficiencies so that you can see. Another common one is a potassium problem. And potassium, if it's too cold or too hot, the plant doesn't uptake potassium. So then we need to do some potassium foliars. So the bottom leaf of a plant, when it's stressed for potassium, will yellow. When it's the growing tip that yellows, that's manganese. Thistles are a lack of manganese. In Walla Walla, there were 5 kinds of thistles. We had sow thistles that would have reached the ceiling. I had never seen anything like it in my life. When we got our application of manganese done, the following year we had no thistles. So weeds are telling you there's a problem. Dandelions in your lawn, lack of calcium. So there's so many things that just become really, really simple to deal with when you balance the soil. Also, people say, "Oh, I don't know whether it's worth taking care of my lawn." But when you balance the nutrients in your lawn, you're actually producing oxygen and cleaning the air around your house and keeping yourself healthier. Yes?
We have quite a few grapevines in our garden around the house, and one of them in particular has had a problem for a couple of years, and we don't really know what to do about it. It seems like it's growing okay for the majority of the season, and then as it's time for the grapes to start to ripen, the leaves kind of get powdery looking, and the grapes just shrivel.
Okay. That's a couple things that could be calcium, it could be copper, it could be a potassium problem. when they go into the grapes, they feed pretty heavy on the potassium. That's where you need to have a soil test and kind of see where you're at. Let me find
yourself
that.
and do that kind of stuff?
I have Midwest Labs do it. This is what a soil test from Midwest Lab looks like. It costs $25. It takes 2 cups of soil. And when we get this back, then I can tell you exactly what you need to do, how many pounds of everything, how to take care of the problem. Yes?
Now, when you take a soil sample, I've got the front of my house and I've got the garden area that's kind of been tilled for seven years. So
Yeah.
should I take a sample in both areas?
You can do that. If you feel that you fertilize them so differently that you need to, you can. It's totally up to you if you want to do 1 or 2. Most people do, the lawn different and the garden different. And it's $25 a sample, but you can mail 2 of them in the same priority box so you don't have to pay extra shipping. So that's a help too.
But it still would cost $50 for the 2
Yeah,
samples.
yeah.
How long does it take to get the results back?
I usually have them within 7 working days. Yes.
Is there a better time of year to do the sample than others?
You want the ground unfrozen, not this week, ladies. We're down to 20 degrees already. Anytime the ground is not frozen, and it kind of helps if you're doing it the next year about the same time to kind of give you the same idea. But, when I'm working with these farmers who are so messed up, we will soil test every 5 months because we're doing a correction, and then we want to see how that correction is done. And then before winter, we want to know what we're going to apply so the crop is going to work in the spring. So it just depends on what you're working with and how bad it is. We like to see what we've accomplished, what we still need to accomplish, and get things where we need to be. But usually once a year is fine. But I've been working with a couple of guys that their property is so bad that I had them pull a soil test in the summer. When I started talking to them, I had them pull another one right after harvest, and we will pull another one in April just to see how things have assimilated during the winter, because he insisted on putting on 12 tons of chicken manure.
Are you saying you come out and consult?
Pardon?
Are you saying that you go out and consult?
I do a lot of consulting over the phone. People send in their soil tests. My name and number goes right here, 10127, and it will automatically be emailed to me. So as soon as they run that test, they will email it to me, and then I can call you on the telephone and tell you exactly what's going on. Yes?
My grass, my yard is crabgrass, and I'm trying to convince my husband that we don't want to put a pre-emergent on it before
Yeah, it doesn't really help.
it doesn't really help with what we have.
It's the worst thing to get rid of. And tilling it and leaving it to air dry is probably one of the easier ways, but you've got to have calcium, you've got to have microbes. They grow in really calcium deficient ground. And when we were in milk-free water, we had a big Ford tractor with a 14-foot rotavator. And we wanted to till the backyard out, this big backyard, for a garden. And I had this much roots before I hit soil. And I was bouncing that 14-foot rotavator. I could not believe my eyes. But you just till it, let it air dry, till it, let it air dry, because every little section will grow. And it's a pain to get rid of, but the more you get the ground better and you can let it dry out, the better off you are. Otherwise, you can sit there and pick those little parts for the rest of your life. Yes?
How about Bermuda grass?
Bermuda grass, I think she's talking about the same thing with crabgrass.
Oh, is that what we're talking about?
Most people are.
Because I took out my whole front yard and literally took it out, dug it down like a foot, and
Yeah.
now it's back again. I mean,
And
there's-
sometimes it's down 2 feet. I've found down 3 feet. Yeah, it's a problem. So you have to change the biology. They like compacted soil. So you've got to get your calcium in there, you've got to get your microbes, you've got to get some humus in there, and you've got to, change things. The fish seems to help quite a bit too, because it really nourishes the bacteria and things that are going to make it so it doesn't like to grow. But it is one of the hardest things to get rid of. I've been working on a side yard for a number of years, and I kept it tilled for a couple of years. We had a death in the family, and it just got ignored. And I was out there putting some of the borax in my fruit trees, because I have a dozen fruit trees in my backyard. And I was noticing that I have bare ground. That stuff has quit growing, so I can finally get a lawn in. So I was pretty excited about that. Okay, let's talk about sustainable farming, sustainable gardening.
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
I'm very interested in aquaponics. Do you think I can have my water tested that same way?
Yes, Midwest does water testing, yes.
Did you say also, how would you treat a peach tree? Are you actually saying sprinkle the borax on the ground around it, or put it in water and spray the leaves?
You have a drip line. When you are fertilizing your fruit trees, you want to be totally underneath that tree from the drip line in. That's how you fertilize. Your drip line is your active feeding, probably a foot's width out there. But you want to make sure that you can get enough coverage so that all of the roots are picking it up for the tree.
So are you sprinkling it as a powder, or are you putting it in water and then
Now,
watering it?
with that, I just sprinkle it as a powder. And it's not difficult. It's really light and granularly, and I didn't have any problem at all in putting it out underneath the trees and not having any clumps or heavy spots.
And when would you do that relative to the season?
You want to do it right away.
Now?
I mean, today with the 20 degrees now. Wait a few days. We're only going to have 3 or 4 days of this, and it'll warm back up again. But any time that you can get it on the ground and it's going to have a little moisture, be able to go in, would be great.
And if you have other plants growing in the garden around the tree, is that okay? We
Yes.
have flowers and...
Yeah, everything needs boron. So,
And say again how much you would put on around a tree.
2 3/4 ounces per large fruit tree. Just love that scientific stuff, because it's always hard to figure out exactly how much. But there's a book written by a French gentleman that said specifically, he's a really specific guy. He works with all kinds of crops in France, and he was the first one that actually said X amount of ounces. So that was nice for me. Yeah, how much do I put out here? If you're doing it like fairy dust, just a light dusting, is how he said it. Yes.
What is that book called, Delores?
Oh, Healthy Crops by Charbonneau, Charbossu or something like that. I didn't grab that one. That is extremely technical. This is the book that you want to start with, okay? This is the one that makes it easy, explains all the terms, and will give you the basis you need to go to other books. If I had read this one first, I could have saved myself a lot of grief.
Is that talking about it on a farming scale or a backyard garden scale?
It's probably on a farming scale, but it's the basic ideas of what it means to get these things in balance that you need to understand. So it really goes into how the soil works and how the minerals interact, and gives you the terms you need to know so that you can read further if you have that desire.
The author?
Charles Walters. A lot of these books can be ordered through the library. But my library told me that they would order any of these books in as long as they were under $40. So I had them order in several of the alternative farming, biological farming books. So you might check with the library first. But I also have a list that I wrote up for the different books that I recommend. Because I have probably 15 books, and I have them all underlined so I can find things that I need quickly. And they all have a little bit different ideas so that you can learn a lot of different things, because you run into different problems, and what one guy might think works might have a little bit of different tact because they've had a little bit different experience. And the other thing that you have to understand about so many of these farming books, these guys, all of these guys that have been doing this for the past 100 years, all were in the South, Missouri, Georgia, Alabama, down in that area. They're used to deep black soils and plenty of rain. They do not have a clue how it works in this desert. They don't have a clue. And so I've been farming in this area for a long time, and you've got to do some other basic things. So they can You know, one guy says, all you have to do is mulch. Oh, it's gonna be just wonderful and just mulch. I'm sorry, our trees are deficient, so the leaves that we're using, we're still deficient in boron and manganese and don't have enough calcium. So we're composting. Do you know what happens when you compost? You use up your minerals. So you've just become more mineral deficient. So if you don't have that soil balanced first, and you have a composting item that is going to have some balanced nutrition in it, you're just fighting a losing battle. I used to have a 1 acre compost pile when we had the 110 acres. The city of College Place would bring me all of their leaves. I had 40 truckloads of leaves. And I was checking monthly on my calcium level because I had worked hard to get it right at 70%. I had it. And I was horrified to see that calcium level go down 15% in 3 months. Horrified. And so I realized that you need to add calcium. That's part of the breakdown. That's part of the item that helps break it down. So many years later, Elaine Ingram was giving a talk on her composting business. And she says, oh yes, we found out through the composting, we have to add minerals. And I said, well, I figured that out 10 years ago. So that is something that you have to think about when you're composting. Add some calcium, add some rock phosphate. And I brought some of these items so you can see. This is rock phosphate. Rock phosphate is a natural ground phosphate product. It has lots of calcium, and it breaks down for about 5 years. So it's recommended you add some rock phosphate every 3rd or 4th year, because you have a certain breakdown, and then it goes up and goes down. So 3 to 4 years, you add a little bit more. That gives you plenty of rock phosphate. This is crab shell, which is high in nitrogen. We put 2 gallons in a 4x4 tote, making our own soil mix, and we had 279 pounds of nitrogen when we ran the test. That was a little much, so we backed off. So I tell people about a cup, not more than a cup per square foot, and that will break down slowly. The other product that we have is azomite. They call it azomite. Has all minerals from A to Z. So that can give you a lot of flavor by getting all of those minor trace minerals that you might not pick up in something else. The fish fertilizer gives us a lot of lipids and oils. It's cold processed and gives us a lot of trace minerals also. Yes?
Are you talking about the modern composting, but not the finished product of compost?
We put azomite down before planting so that it goes into the plant. Okay? When I'm composting, I just use my major minerals like, calcium. Yeah, you can sprinkle it over the top.
Yeah,
Okay.
So our chicken are running around compost.
That's great.
Is it not a problem?
Nope.
Okay, all right.
We have nothing that will be a problem to your animals. They like the crab shell. I had the chickens in my hoop house. It was cold, and so we put them in the hoop house, and I had some oat grass that I had planted in there for them, and let them run around there for a few weeks, and I put out crab shell, and they thought that was pretty good. So they ate that up. Yeah, none of the products that we use will be toxic to your animals. We have lots of people with chickens running around, or horses in their pasture, or whatever. It is not a problem, it's all healthy.
These products are all things that you're a distributor for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have the fish in bulk on the farm. It's BYOB, bring your own bucket. Save us money. Labels are a fortune, and so are containers, so if you